The Cold War was a defining period in American history, shaping its foreign policy, domestic priorities, and national identity for nearly half a century. Far from a direct military conflict, it was an ideological struggle between the capitalist democratic United States and the communist authoritarian Soviet Union, vying for global influence. This Cold War was fought through proxy wars, espionage, technological races, and propaganda, leaving an indelible mark on the American psyche. The dawn of a bipolar world and containment. The Cold War emerged from the ashes of World War II. The Grand Alliance fractured as fundamental differences in political and economic systems, coupled with Soviet expansion into Eastern Europe, fueled mutual distrust. Winston Churchill's Iron Curtain speech in 1946 vividly described the division of Europe, solidifying the perception of an existential threat. America's initial response was the policy of containment, articulated by diplomat George F. Kennan. This strategy aimed to prevent the spread of communism rather than directly confronting existing communist states. The Truman Doctrine, in 1947, committed the U.S. to supporting free peoples who are resisting attempted subjugation by armed minorities or by outside pressures, effectively pledging American aid to countries threatened by communism, particularly Greece and Turkey. This was followed by the Marshall Plan, 1948 to 1952, a massive economic aid package designed to rebuild Western Europe. The thinking was that economic stability would inoculate these nations against communist influence. These initiatives were crucial in solidifying Western alliances and countering Soviet expansion. Global confrontations and the nuclear shadow. The Cold War quickly escalated into a global chess match. The Berlin Blockade, 1948 to 1949, where the Soviets cut off all land access to West Berlin, led to the unprecedented Berlin airlift, showcasing American resolve. The formation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, in 1949, a collective security alliance, formalized the Western Bloc, directly countering the Soviet Union and its later formed Warsaw Pact. The communist victory in China in 1949 and the Soviet Union's successful testing of an atomic bomb in the same year dramatically heightened American anxieties. The Korean War, 1950 to 1953, became the first major hot conflict of the Cold War, a brutal proxy war fought to contain communism on the Korean peninsula. This conflict solidified the U.S. commitment to interventionism in Asia and led to a significant military buildup. Throughout the Cold War, the constant threat of nuclear annihilation cast a long shadow. The arms race between the U.S. and the USSR led to the development of increasingly powerful weapons, from the hydrogen bomb to intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or MAD, while terrifying, was also seen as a deterrent, as any first strike would guarantee the destruction of both superpowers. Fallout shelters became a grim reality for many American families, and school drills taught children to duck and cover. Domestic impact and the Red Scare. At home, the Cold War fueled a period of intense anti-communism known as the Second Red Scare. Senator Joseph McCarthy became a notorious figure, leading a witch hunt for suspected communists within government, Hollywood, and various institutions. His baseless accusations and aggressive tactics, known as McCarthyism, created an atmosphere of fear and paranoia, ruining careers and lives. Loyalty oaths became commonplace, and dissent was often equated with disloyalty. This era also saw a significant shift in American society. Government spending on defense and scientific research soared, stimulating technological advancements. The space race, ignited by the Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik in 1957, spurred American investment in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education, leading to the moon landing in 1969, a symbolic victory in the ideological contest. Shifting strategies and détente. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 brought the world to the brink of nuclear war, forcing both superpowers to recognize the dangers of unchecked confrontation. This near catastrophe led to a period of détente in the 1970s, characterized by a lessening of tensions and increased diplomatic engagement. Treaties like the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, or SALT, aimed to limit the proliferation of nuclear weapons. President Nixon's historic visit to China in 1972 also marked a significant strategic realignment, leveraging the Sino-Soviet split to America's advantage. However, détente was fragile. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 and the election of Ronald Reagan in 1980, who pursued a more confrontational stance, marked a renewed intensity in the Cold War. Reagan's policies, including a massive military buildup and the Strategic Defense Initiative, or Star Wars, put immense economic pressure on the already struggling Soviet Union. The end of an era. The late 1980s witnessed a rapid unraveling of the Soviet bloc. Economic stagnation, internal dissent, and Mikhail Gorbachev's reforms of glasnost, or openness, and perestroika, or restructuring, weakened the Soviet system. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 became a powerful symbol of collapsing communist control. Finally, on December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union formally dissolved, bringing an end to the Cold War. For Americans, the end of the Cold War was met with a mix of relief and a sense of triumph. It was seen as a victory for democracy and capitalism, solidifying the United States' position as the sole superpower. However, it also ushered in a new era of global challenges, from regional conflicts to the rise of new ideological threats, demonstrating that the world was still far from a simple, ununipolar peace. The legacy of the Cold War continues to shape American foreign policy, military strategy, and even domestic political discourse to this day. The end of an era. The late 1980s witnessed a rapid unraveling of the Soviet bloc. Economic stagnation, internal dissent, and Mikhail Gorbachev's reforms of glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, weakened the Soviet system. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 became a powerful symbol of collapsing communist control. Finally, on December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union formally dissolved, bringing an end to the Cold War. For Americans, the end of the Cold War was met with a mix of relief and a sense of triumph. It was seen as a victory for democracy and capitalism, solidifying the United States' position as the sole superpower. However, it also ushered in a new era of global challenges, from regional conflicts to the rise of new ideological threats, demonstrating that the world was still far from a simple, unipolar peace. The legacy of the Cold War continues to shape American foreign policy, military strategy, and even domestic political discourse to this day.